Welcome back, readers. Today, we are going to pay attention to those minor characters, those characters who really hold the story together, but often we don't pay enough attention to. And I know that even some of you last time were like, can I focus on some characters other than the main one? Today, you'll get to. The tip I want to give you about finding information out about your minor characters, because you rarely get to hear their inner thinking to understand them. You really are going to want to look to details that are embedded in dialogue or action that often is with our main character. Let's check it out. Okay, readers, let's look back at this part again from the story that we were reading last time. And I have to look at the name of the story because it's so long. How to transform an everyday, ordinary hoop court into a place of higher learning and you at the podium. Whew, okay. Now, when we look at this part again, we want to ask, what do we learn about each minor character's perspective? Because perspective is the guiding word we're using right now for this whole introductory series, this whole section that we're in. So, what do we learn about each minor character's perspective? How does this character see the world? Does he see the world in the same way as the main character? Now remember, you're not going to hear the inner thinking of the main character, probably. At least not to show the minor character's perspective. You're going to have to look into the details of dialogue and action. What they say and what they do. Now, we're going to go back to the part of the story where our main character is sleeping in his dad's car before he's able to go to Muni Gym, and he gets a rat-a-tat-tat tap on the window from the police officer. Here we go. After the cop explains the situation, your pop will put on an uncomfortable smile and vouch for you. He'll say, "You're a good kid, and you're just down here to play some ball at a gym in Balboa Park." He'll shake hands with the cop enthusiastically, thanking him for his service and apologizing for any trouble you may have caused. Soon as the cop leaves, though, your pops will transform back into himself. "Don't you worry about that power-happy pendejo," he'll say, rubbing your shoulder. "You didn't do nothing wrong." "I was just sleeping." "Mexicans are allowed to sleep, too." He'll look you straight in the eyes, nodding. And this moment, you'll feel closer to your old man than ever before. Okay, so I want you to watch me and listen to me do this work because, like I said, it's tricky. We can't really hear what the father's thinking or feeling. However, we can see his actions and listen to what he says. So here we go. He shakes hands with the cop. So actions of a minor character. Enthusiastically. He's enthused. He's like, "Yeah, I want to shake your hand. This is an honor." He thanks him for his service. He apologizes. What do those actions show us about how our minor character sees the world? Because that's what perspective is talking about. How does our character see the world? I mean, when I'm reading that stuff, it seems to me like he's kind of nervous, possibly, about the cop. I mean, I know when kids get in trouble in my class, and I'm sure that when you get in trouble, or when you've heard of people getting in trouble or see your friends get in trouble, they seem to act awfully polite. And that's what I see right here. The father's never been so polite in the story thus far. When he had asked when our main character had asked the dad earlier in the story about going to Muni Gym, it was like he waited for a minute to even respond. I mean, when we look here, it says pendejo, which it's the father then calling the cop a bad name. And then he tells the son, you didn't do anything wrong. So now thinking about the dialogue, it sort of seems like maybe he's polite because possibly the father, maybe he's bitter about the cop. Maybe cops in general, maybe he had a bad experience in the past. Now, you see how I did that? I've sort of made this theory through watching the minor character, listening to him, and then I made a theory that the minor character of the dad has a bad, possibly feels bitter towards police officer because maybe he had a bad experience in the past. So, when we read our story before, a line that I think stood out to all of us really was basketball was a way out for our main character. And I think in the same way, when the dad says to the boy, Mexicans are allowed to sleep too, I kind of think that might be a big line as well. I mean, he sounds angry and bitter there, doesn't he? So notice how I didn't wait for the minor character to tell us their perspective. They're often not going to. You have to look for it. You have to become like investigators. Put your investigating hat on and try to find what actions and dialogue are giving us hints and clues about how the minor character feels, what their perspective is on the world. And watch out for tone, like in that last part where he said Mexicans are allowed to sleep too. He's got tone to that. There's some real attitude there, real tude. I mean, it turns out that just reading that little section, there's a lot to be learned about how this character sees the world. Okay, readers. You are now going to dive into the reading that you've been doing with your book. I think that you can do the same work and find information about your main characters that you didn't maybe realize was there before, about your minor character's perspective. Now remember, how are we going to find that insight? It's not through inner thinking. You have to watch them carefully from the outside. We've got to look at their actions and their dialogue. And what I want you to do as far as help goes with your partner is you might look back thinking about what you've already read and try to decide if maybe there's going to be some opportunities from things you've already read to uncover how our minor character feels about the world. And that's where you might start. And you might check with your partners, and I suggest you check with your partners to share some of that information you've already found. I would suggest giving yourself a couple minutes to review, maybe even more. It's going to be up to you and your partners, what you've already read, and then share with each other like, hey, they says this line right here. What do you think? Does that sound like maybe this piece of dialogue shows this perspective? They can be that help for you. If they support you and agree with what your opinion is, then you should record that in your journal or your assignment today. After you've looked back, then we want to make sure we get those 30 minutes of reading in today. And while we're doing that, we should be paying attention to the main character's perspective, trying to find information about them through dialogue and actions. All right, readers, you can do this. I have confidence in you. And if you can do this, then your assignment will be done like that. And until I see you next time, happy reading.